Bear Clan's Hiking Sedona podcast, everybody. Today we're doing some trail talk, and I'm going to be discussing A.B. Young. Just a quick intro, as I'm trying to do for every trail hiking podcast that I do. As I discuss the trails of Sedona, know that the time of year, the weather, and of course your skill set is going to determine if you're going to hike these trails. I'm giving you all of the trails that I can possibly give you, therefore there's different skill sets involved. And also, guys, the distance, the mileage of everything that I tell you is based on a one-way distance, because at any point in time, you don't have to go to the end of any trail. You can always turn around and come back. So it's better to know what your out is, not worry so much about your return back, unless you're looking to do the entire trails. So today, folks, I'm going to talk about A.B. Young. I'm just going to give you kind of like a quick intro to the trail itself. In truth, folks, when I feel like I want to go and kick my own butt and really push myself in the cardio and the climbing and just get a monster wall to go up, I go to A.B. Young. It's probably the hardest elevation gain in Sedona. There are more elevation gains or higher elevation gains, but the trails to get there are a little bit easier than this. This is by far what I call the wall. It's by far the hardest hike to do for a wall. And the trail length is about 2 miles. And it doesn't seem all that bad when you're talking distance. However, the elevation gain is a little bit over 2,000 feet within about a 1.6 mile climb. The terrain on the trail is pretty rocky, and in some spots, due to erosion, the trail may not even exist. There's been a lot of situations, especially we had a fire a few years back that did a lot of damage, and they actually closed off A.B. Young for quite a while because of all the water that they were trying to put down to save the pines and all the foliage. The water tended to do some damage to the trail. So they shut it down for about 2 years and tried fixing it. There are some spots, like I said, that may seem like they don't exist, but there's enough and it's clear, and they've done a phenomenal job. There are 36 switchbacks that get you from the base of the wall to the top of the wall. Switchbacks, if you don't know, basically, it's kind of like doing a zigzag. So imagine 36 of those points turns from the base to the top of the wall. But at the same time, the top of the wall isn't the end of the trail. It just happens to be the hardest part. There is a large rock slide that kind of destroyed the trail a little bit, but there are now, I think it's 7 crossovers that'll get you across it. You just have to be super careful, as the rocks that are on that rock slide are not 100% stable, and you really have to be cautious with your footing. As you're going to notice doing this hike, the angle that you're going to be hiking up is ridiculously steep. Now, with what I call visual prizes all the way up the wall, it gives you a phenomenal understanding of how erosion works over the millions of years. Especially down this one particular canyon, you're going to be looking down Oak Creek Canyon the entire climb up the wall. Just a little history, this trail in fact was originally created by a gentleman named Bear Howard. He created the trail somewhere in the 1880s, but I don't recall him ever giving it a name, and I've looked up at our museum to see if there was a name for it. We just know that he built it. And from what I understand also, it was later refined into an official trail somewhere in the 1930s by a group called the Civilian Conservation Corps. And they were headed by a gentleman named A.B. Young, which then, of course, gave the trail its official name. Now, as you complete the wall, you can basically sit up on top and bask in the beautiful glory of crushing what I see as the hardest face in Sedona. However, you can also continue on the trail, which heads kind of in a southward direction and into the Ponderosa Pine Forest. If you decide to continue, what I would highly recommend is that you put a visual in your head of exactly where the trail starts down. The rock formations that are around that trail can get a little bit confusing if you're not absolutely sure where it is. So just either stick it in your mind, or better yet, just take a picture of that location. You're going to need to find the trail on your way back if you choose to continue. And along the way, like I said, you're going to be in the Ponderosa Pine Forest, so there's a possibility you might end up seeing some mule deer or even elk running around. I have seen both of those before in different hikes, so it's a good possibility. Now, as you continue on the trail, you're going to have to be very aware that there are several non-trail kind of social passes that will bring you out to some insanely gorgeous views. Just keep focused on where you are, where you're going, and where you came from. That way you don't get confused by the likenesses, because you might pop into one little spot and then when you pop back out, it's going to look a lot different than where you just came in, and you might get yourself lost. Be sure you're really focused on where you're going, folks. Continuing up the mountain through the Ponderosa Pines, the trail kind of just does a casual zigzag, has some gorgeous moments and some beautiful views of the pines, and off in the distance you can see some really dynamite views, but it's kind of through the canopy of the trees. Now, as you continue up, somewhere around maybe about a half mile further up, you're going to reach what is called a fire tower. And yes, folks, it's actually a real fire tower that people from the government actually stay up in those fire towers to look over the entire area of northern Arizona. There are several just in the view that you have. So when you're at that fire tower, you're actually going to be standing on the absolute highest point in Sedona, and that's going to be just around 7,196 feet of elevation. Unfortunately, like I said before, you're going to be hiking in the canopy of the pines. You're going to have very little views to speak of, unless, of course, you really dig pine trees. So essentially, folks, that's going to be the high point of your hike, literally. Once you decide you had enough of the views, which may take a few hours, it's time to head down. The one thing I will remind you at this point, everybody, is to remember where that trail down was. I told you earlier to take a picture of it or do your best to absolutely remember exactly where that trail begins to go down the wall. And one thing to really keep in mind, folks, is I tell everyone this before they hike trails in Sedona: what goes up must come down. If your legs and your cardio is not designed to do a wall like this, then I would tell you just definitely do not try hiking A.B. Young. We just had 2 hikers rescued about maybe 2 weeks ago from this podcast, about 2 weeks ago, that were rescued from A.B. Young. Not because they couldn't make it up, but they couldn't make it up safely. And unfortunately, one of those people did come out by helicopter. So keep that in mind. Keep it simple, and above all, folks, keep it safe. Thank you very much for listening into this podcast. I hope you stay tuned for the next Trail Talk podcast that I have. I appreciate your time and effort, folks. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you on the trails. Thank you again for listening in today, folks. Your time and energy is greatly appreciated. Please feel free to download these episodes, favorite them, share them, and even visit my YouTube channel, Yava-Coco Productions, for all the podcast playlists and for some insanely cool videos of my hiking adventures that I do in Sedona. That all helps me to continue to bring you more exciting podcasts and videos, both for healing, spirituality, as well as just kind of amazing videos of Sedona, Arizona. For those of you wanting to dig in a little deeper, maybe you're struggling with some inner issues, or you're in a recovery path from an addiction, or just looking for inspirational discussions about healing, check out all of my podcasts on your favorite podcast players. Titles like Path to Recovery podcast, Cognitive Awareness with a Touch of God podcast, Bear Clan's Hiking Sedona podcast, and yes, I even have one called Star Wars, The Bear Awakens podcast. We are here to help you, and what we're trying to do is offer you things that can help you for free. Plus, there's entertainment involved with a lot of these anyway. So thank you again, folks. God bless you, and I hope to see you on the rocks. Energy is greatly appreciated. Please feel free to download these episodes, favorite them, share them, and even visit my YouTube channel, Yava-Coco Productions, for all the podcast playlists and for some insanely cool videos of my hiking adventures that I do in Sedona. That all helps me to continue to bring you more exciting podcasts and videos, both for healing, spirituality, as well as just kind of amazing videos of Sedona, Arizona. For those of you wanting to dig in a little deeper, maybe you're struggling with some inner issues, or you're in a recovery path from an addiction, or just looking for inspirational discussions about healing, check out all of my podcasts on your favorite podcast players. Titles like Path to Recovery podcast, Cognitive Awareness with a Touch of God podcast, Bear Clan's Hiking Sedona podcast, and yes, I even have one called Star Wars, The Bear Awakens podcast. We are here to help you, and what we're trying to do is offer you things that can help you for free. Plus, there's entertainment involved with a lot of these anyway. So thank you again, folks. God bless you, and I hope to see you on the rocks.